Kicking off the list at number 10, glyphosate. We'll start this wacky list off with perhaps one of the coolest things that I've seen online. Also one of the weirdest things for sure. This was posted by Reddit user Thunderbolt, and it was in tons of communities. I've seen this video pop up numerous places. The internet knows me so well. It looks otherworldly. I thought this video was in slow-mo. Nope. Take a look. I had to watch it a few times. This looks like it's in slow motion, but when the camera moves away, that's clearly not the case. So what's going on here? What am I looking at? What in the avatar is going on? This is turbulent flow, and the speed matches that of the camera's shutters. It's kind of like footage of a helicopter. You know, sometimes it'll fly through the air and it looks like it's just still, just doing this. It's the weirdest thing ever. Really, it's the propellers that are matching the camera's shutter speeds. It's odd, but in this case, it's really odd. Imagine sending this to your boss to check in at work. Yeah, the ectoplasm's in slow-mo again, so it's gonna be a while. Send. Number 9, shifting plates. I remember this back in 2013. I hope this rings a bell for some of you watching. In 2013, a woman in British Columbia, over in Canada, heard a trumpet sound, a low, slow, like a trumpet, or so she thought. At first, nothing came from these claims or videos, just a few comments saying, that's weird, which it is. But then it started to happen in areas all over the world, from Texas to Norway, so something's going on. It's the same slow, loud trumpet sound. Well, it turns out this sound was coming from the ocean this whole time. Because again, in 2018, a little more recently, the same low-pitched humming noise was heard in Hawaii, Kenya, and then Chile. So what we're hearing all these years are shifting tectonic plates. That's our best guess at this point. Undersea volcanoes, sure, just moving some deep-sea furniture around. It's gotta be loud. Some folk believe that there's another dimension underneath the ocean floor, so maybe this is just a door opening and closing. Maybe this is the bouncer being like, oh, come on in, okay. Either way, I'm good here on land, never going down there. Number 8, Quacker. Quaker Oats, Quacker Oats, the Quacker. Not to be confused with the Kraken, he's a little bit different. This is the Quacker. A loud quack was heard during the Cold War, so a little bit older. It was recorded while Soviet Navy ballistic missile submarines were heading through North Atlantic and Arctic waters. They heard quacking or ribbit, something like some sort of deep sea duck. Whenever submarines passed a certain area, this loud quack would come from deep below, and it came from an object that was moving around. That's the mysterious part. That's why we threw it on our list today. The Soviets thought they were overhearing secret US tech, you know, like I guess some deep sea duck radar. I've heard rumors of that one. That's good. That was in a James Bond movie for sure. Scientists believe that it came from a giant squid, which is somehow more alarming than the ocean floor. Number 7, underwater, underworld. Back in 2018, a diver was exploring flooded caves in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. They were on the beach having a good time. Then they saw this opening about 1.5 feet wide, barely enough to fit one person. And this diver was like, They went through. That's terrifying. First of all, bravo, hats off, that's extremely brave. But then they found this underwater tunnel that connected the Saskatoon Cave and the Dos Ojos cave system. So this is a huge discovery. Because now this is considered one of the largest underwater cave systems in the world. In total, it runs about 347 kilometers long. I can't even fathom how long that is underwater. This cave has been untouched since the last ice age, rightfully so. And the 200 pockets inside are filled with bones, Mayan altars, fossils belonging to now extinct animals. It's basically a time capsule from 15,000 years ago. So if you're diving through small cave entrances, you know, don't go alone, or you might get stuck in time, apparently. Or you might find thousands of bones, or a possible entrance to the underworld. Yeah, that's also a hot rumor for this underwater Mayan cave system. I forgot my flippers. Can't go, sorry guys. Have fun though, sounds like a great time. Number 6, Titan Ocean. This one is literally out of this world. Coming from one of the many moons of Saturn, Titan, around 10 years ago, NASA's Cassini spacecraft detected water underneath its massive shell of ice. That's pretty exciting. To quote a Cassini team member, the search for water is an important goal in solar system exploration, and now we've spotted another place where it's abundant. NASA has also detected low-frequency radio waves on this moon before, so perhaps there's something going on under the space sea. Our own ocean is mysterious enough, let alone receiving signals from an ocean in space. No thanks, I don't want to even think about what's up there. Number 5, the Kraken. Jack Sparrow's worst nightmare. Is it real? Is the Kraken actually a real thing? Where does this come from? Well, maybe. The giant squid is not that far-fetched. Some creatures in the ocean are massive as is, like for example, this manta ray off the coast of Trinidad. If the internet didn't exist and I saw this in real life, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So of course, many sailors reported seeing the Kraken at one point or another. The ocean's terrifying. For ages now, sailors specifically from Norway and Greenland have all continued to share eyewitness reports of a giant sea monster, the Kraken. kraken. Apparently it had tentacles big enough to pull you and your mateys right off of the ship. In 1857, Danish naturalist Japetus Steenstrup found a large squid beak, and then soon after he was sent parts of another specimen from the Bahamas, so people were trying to help him out. So he concluded with all these gross puzzle pieces that the kraken is real, and it's part of a species of giant squid called Architeuthis dux, which is Latin for ruling squid. Very little is known about giant squids, seeing as they're so hard to track, but we did get a photo of one back in 2005 and a video of one in 2013. Number 4, the whistle. If you can whistle, honestly, enjoy it. I've been trying for years. All I got is the one note. I'm like a bird. My lips are way too dry and weak, apparently. Nothing like this whistle, recorded in July 1997. This whistle was picked up by one hydrophone, meaning that scientists now can't pinpoint its location in the ocean, so we have no idea where it came from. But it was very loud, so we heard it. Somewhere in the Pacific, just, you know, somewhere out there. Good luck, just listen. That's terrifying. What do you think this is, really? The NOAA has compared the sound to volcanic activity, but because it could have come from literally anywhere, it could have been an iceberg, it could have been hydrothermal vents, it could have been the Kraken. Who knows? What do you think? Number 3, the green flash. I watch way too many superhero movies, so this next one had me pacing around my living room for a hot minute. Who is this? Who is this guy? Who's this green flash man? The green flash phenomena happens in the ocean. So far, we've only observed the flash above water, but I'm sure there's some mysterious happenings going on below, you know? I'm sure there's a few confused fish over there when it happens. This happens during sunset and sunrise. Best time to see the green flash is on a clear evening over water, and the air must be clean. So if you're in a polluted city, you're like, damn it. The reason we see a green flash is because of our boy, Roy G. Biv. This is the G in Roy G. Biv. Sunlight reflects off the atmosphere like a big old prism, and in turn, for thousands of years, humans have probably been like, what was that? I just saw a green flash. I keep seeing it every night. What is going on? They're probably so confused for thousands of years. No, it's not a Justice League villain. It's just the sunset. Number 2, HMS Daedalus. This 19th century warship belonged to the Royal Navy. It was this big class beauty equipped with 19 guns, and it launched at Woolwich Dockyard in 1844. It was a big deal. 4 years later, Captain McQuay, along with his officers and crew, all set sail to St. Helena, but during their commute, they were visited. Yeah, this is why we have the guns on the side of the ship. If any trouble comes along, be it pirates, whatever the case, we're now equipped. Thing is, this visitor didn't come from the sides or the front or the back, it came from below, in the form of a 60-foot long serpent. And it hung around for 20 minutes, apparently, with its head breaking the surface of the water occasionally. The captain said it was so close under the ship that if it was one of his own crew members under there, he could have easily recognized their face. That's how clear the water was. It wasn't choppy or cloudy, it was a normal day otherwise. So do we think 60-foot long sea snakes exist? Who's to say? I mean, considering this list, I'd say yeah. We barely explored our own ocean. And finally, number 1, the Milky Sea phenomenon. This one you can see from space, so we're leaving the biggest and brightest for last, folks. The Milky Sea phenomenon was first observed back in 1864 by Captain Raphael Semmes. Captain Raphael Semmes journaled it aboard his CSS Alabama. He wrote about passing from the deep blue waters into a patch of water so bright that it startled him. The whole face of nature seemed to change, and with a little stretch of imagination, the Alabama might have been conceived to be a phantom ship lighted up by the sickly and unearthly glare of a phantom sea. That's not an exaggeration as well. This phenomena is something out of Avatar, really. It's so alien-like. Bioluminescence is part of the reason for this ghostly bright blue appearance, but sailors say there is something sinister about it as well. To this day, we don't fully understand how bioluminescence works, but it's continuing to blow our minds. For example, we just discovered a new shark. We just found a glowing shark. A glowing shark. What is happening here? The Milky Sea phenomenon is bigger than a glowy shark, and it can span around 100,000 square miles, so you'll see it. If it's around, you'll probably see it. It lasts for a few nights too, so I don't blame these sailors for getting spooked out. In 2005, we got low orbit satellites to snap a pic of this phenomenon, but even so, we don't fully understand why it happens. But we're trying our best.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the 4D world. To start off this list, we have one idea of how other dimensions could theoretically exist in our world. Basically, right now, we as humans can observe our 3-dimensional world, and depending on who you talk to, maybe we already know about the 4th dimension, although we can't see it, as many people believe the 4th dimension is space-time. We know and can physically observe the other 3, which are of course length, width, and height. For anything beyond these 3, we can think and conceptualize what they might be or what they might be like, but we truly have no idea what it would be like to exist inside of these other dimensions. So everything we know is 3D, but that isn't to say that there aren't other dimensions or that they can't exist. In fact, we can neither prove or disprove that they do just because we only exist in 3 dimensions. There are scientists out there who have come to the conclusion, or maybe having a hypothesis is a better way to put it, that if higher dimensions do in fact exist, it is highly likely that it would be nearly impossible for us to come in contact with them. I mean, they would have a completely different way of existing than we do, but just because we can't interact doesn't mean we can't live alongside. I guess long story short, this is just the idea that just because we can't prove it doesn't mean that disproves it, and it's just likely that we'll never know.
Number 9, player 2 has entered. I saw this video again a while back online, as I spend most of my time on Reddit after midnight, you know, as do the rest of us. And for months now, nobody can figure out what is happening in this video. Take a look. Was he running beside the truck? How did he just appear? Was he hanging onto the side of the truck like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible? How is he so calm, cool, and collect? He waits a second after the truck pulls away. He waits a second, almost as if he's still loading. Maybe some other dimensions going on here. People are saying it's an edit, others are saying the van door was open, and then others are arguing in the comments about which doors belong on which vans. Then there's also an argument about wheels and doors, but I think that's something that's separate, that's totally separate. Whichever universe this man came from, welcome, first of all, and you've caused so many headaches already, so great start. Number 8, too many beetles. Before you get grossed out, I don't mean that type of beetle, although that would be pretty bad as well. Gross. This video was shared to the lovely world of, you guessed it, Reddit. User H. Mumberto was having just a normal day, but there's like 6 of the same car that appear out of nowhere. There's the exact same Volkswagen Beetle, same color and everything. 2 are parked, one's driving into town, another's driving out of town, and one is lost. Can't figure out which town they're in. I hope they're filming a movie or something here because this is honestly pretty creepy. I would film this as well, for sure. This is like the Truman Show in real life. Oh God, that movie messed me up when I was younger. If this was me, I wouldn't be nearly as calm as whoever's filming this video. That's so many white beetles just around in one small area. That's like in GTA 5, when you get in one car, then all of a sudden every car around you is the exact same. You're like, what's going on here? It's trippy, it's very noticeable. I couldn't imagine seeing this in real life, so thank you for sharing. That being said, it's not bizarre for some places to manufacture the same model of a car, but this, I don't know, it's creepy. This is like definitely a glitch in the Matrix. Number 7, 3 dogs. This is the most bizarre video I've seen in a while, straight up. This was almost number 1, but we get into more of the, you know, cosmic stuff for number 1, so, you know. Animals follow each other. This is a known fact in nature, but this right here is next level. At first, I thought these were 3 cats, because, you know, cats are a bit more insane than dogs. You know, if I had to bet on which animal would run into a glass window 3 times in a row, I would probably say a cat. Cats are wild. They'll stare at nothing for like 42 minutes. Creepy, I don't like that. This video shows 3 dogs confusing the hell out of a staff. It looks like a clinic of some sorts or a hospital. One dog runs into the glass, it's okay, and it runs off. Another dog does the same thing, it's okay, runs off. And then in comes a 3rd dog, just to continue confusing the staff and myself watching this video. The fact that they're all the same color and size and hits the same window, I mean, something's going on here. This is actually crazy. Maybe it's one dog, and he's just really, really fast. He's just doing laps. Number 6, the cold spot. Okay, getting more cosmic now into these dimensions and parallel universes. Okay, so strap in. In 2004, NASA's WMAP satellite saw one of the most mysterious and perhaps one of the most ominous findings in science history, the cold spot. And no, I don't mean your ex's heart. Nothing is colder than that. That's another list. We'll save that one. The cold spot is, for starters, massive. When the universe was created a good, 14 billion years ago, it left some cosmic microwave background for us to explore and, just live in. Specifically, this one really cold spot of radiation. While the rest of the universe expands and cools down over time in millions of years, this area has remained colder than any of the surrounding area. Just radiation left over from the very beginning of our universe. Another theory by scientists is that this cold spot is a result of collision between 2 different universes, which is interesting. That's when things start to get a little mind-bendy. Could this spot be an icy cold doorway into another bubble universe? Perhaps the first evidence that proves the multiverse theory, aside from the show Loki? Maybe. We'll have to see. Just gotta stick around and wait for something to happen. They have that collider that may or may not help, that I may or may not talk about later on. Number 5, the Milky Sea phenomenon. I've seen this with my very own eyes, and if you get a chance to see bioluminescence in the ocean, do it. What an odd request. Everyone's like, okay, finally, it's about time. I'm gonna do it. The Milky Sea phenomenon was first observed back in 1864. Captain Raphael Semez journaled it aboard his CSS Alabama, and he had no idea what the hell he was looking at. Even today, we don't fully understand how bioluminescence works in nature. So this captain obviously was shaken after seeing something like this. He wrote about passing from the deep blue waters into a patch of water so bright that it startled him. A startled explorer. Ah, yes, nothing worse than that. He wrote down his thoughts and feelings. Remember, this is 1864, long before the movie Avatar was out in theaters, so this is all new to human beings. Captain Raphael wrote, "The whole face of nature seemed to have changed. With a little stretch of the imagination, the CSS Alabama might have been conceived to be a phantom ship lit up by the sickly and unearthly glare of a phantom sea." That's what I'm going to write down. What am I looking at? Guy thought he drifted into Pandora. That's quite the quote, Captain Semez. Thank you for sharing. All those years ago. I don't think he's watching this video. That's not an exaggeration either. This phenomenon is something out of a movie. It's so alien. Bioluminescence is part of the reason for this ghostly bright blue appearance, but sailors who have experienced this say there's something sinister about it as well, so who really knows? To this day, we don't fully understand how bioluminescence works, but it's continuing to grow and blow our minds. We just discovered a glowing shark recently. Yeah, just a new shark, a new glowy shark. That's what we're dealing with now, so this captain would be surprised if he saw what we have now. The Milky Sea phenomenon can span around 100,000 square miles, so again, this one's pretty large. And it can last for a few nights, so I don't blame these sailors for getting spooked. In 2005, we got low orbit satellites to snap a pic of this phenomenon, and on a list of otherworldly dimensions, this is perhaps the most otherworldly event that happens on our planet. Number 4, Large Hadron Collider. We can't have a list on other dimensions and not talk about the Large Hadron Collider. This project is testing the laws of physics. We mentioned earlier the remnants left over from the Big Bang and all that. Well, scientists are currently trying to make another Big Bang. Well, a little bang. A smaller bang. Hopefully a smaller bang. This project was put in motion by CERN. They're trying to identify what dark matter is, seeing how, it makes up a lot of our universe, and the project also aims at trying to discover tiny black holes. And if you've seen Interstellar, this could mean a few things if done correctly. We could maybe open a door to a parallel universe. So us humans are like, you know what, let's try and smash some particles together, see what happens. So now we have a 16-mile long underground ring that blasts proton beams close to the speed of light, then they make them collide into each other, ideally creating a black hole. How fun for us. The project hasn't been successful yet, but when it is, I feel like we'll know. We'll have an idea, we'll have a feeling in our hearts, or we might turn into spaghetti instantly. We'll know something worked, or didn't, for that matter. Number 3, the Philadelphia experiment. Perhaps one of the most bizarre tales when it comes to other dimensions. And this one has credibility behind it too. It pops up in my Reddit a lot. The 1943 Philadelphia experiment. If you haven't heard of it, sorry, this is gonna upset you maybe. This World War II conspiracy theory takes place on the USS Eldridge, this destroyer-class ship, and they were conducting these secret experiments aboard this ship to gain power over naval warfare. One of these experiments was to create this technology that makes ships invisible. On radar. That's an important note. Invisible on radar, not like... But when the generators were fired up to try this, the hull apparently lit up with this green and blue light, then the ship actually disappeared. Invisible IRL, not just radar. It was then seen at a naval shipyard in Virginia before the same thing happened again, and then it appeared back in Philadelphia, apparently. This sounds intense as is, but when you hear about the crew on board, it gets pretty scary. Some, of course, went mad after the dimensional dip, while others had physical effects from the cosmic commute. Yeah, some haunting details in that one. Some dude's arm was like just in the wall or something. It was horrible. I can't even talk about it on YouTube. It's gross. Number 2, Tartarus. Okay, we're getting a bit historical in the other dimensions for this one now. Number 2 and 1, we're getting deep. Greek mythology, here we go. According to Greek mythology, I'm talking like way back in 700 BC, Tartarus was a deep abyss. A dungeon, really, full of, suffering and torture and everything bad that you can think of, just, probably in there. This place full of suffering, of course, resides in Hades. If you played the game Hades, you know exactly where I'm talking about. It's the second world. It's so hard. Hades is a realm where the dead go after their, time is run out. It doesn't mean that it's a fiery abyss per se, that's just where Tartarus comes in. Tartarus is where the underworld devil theme kicks in. Plato wrote about these souls of the dead and how they were judged, and after they, would have to cross a river of the dead and all that stuff. So that's definitely some other dimension stuff that we're talking about there when it comes to the religious history. If you were a great human being, you were of course judged as so, and subsequently you were sent to Tartarus, the bad place. In Greek poet Hesiod's Theogony, Tartarus was offspring of Aether and Gaia. They were the third of the primordial deities. Even Zeus mentioned this place in the Iliad. Zeus states that Tartarus is as far beneath Hades as heaven is high above earth. So that's a lot of dimensions. We're in the middle right now, which is nice. I want to stay here. I'm like, maybe. Definitely not. Here, we're good. And finally, number 1, DUAT. The Egyptian afterlife. Yeah, we don't have photos of this one, but we have some really old art, which is almost more compelling. Otherwise known as the Fields of Reeds or Fields of Offering, DUAT is a place ancient Egyptians believed came after life. In fact, they believed that life on Earth was just a mere fraction of an eternal life that we're meant to live. Not ending in death, but rather forever lasting in peace and harmony. Doesn't that sound great? We love that. They believe there was more to the body failing. You know, the soul must continue. It must go on somewhere. Born on Earth, believing in the gods and the deities known as the Seven Hathors, once death did arrive, you're just entering another realm. But hopefully the gods have judged you so you can live in this paradise realm known as the Fields of Reeds. Not DUAT. You want that one, definitely not the other one. The thing is, you don't just pass on and then enter this nice realm where you can drink wine and, you know, two-step with your relatives. No, you have to earn your spot. You have to show the gods that you're a good human being. This paradise is just really a mirror image of your previous mortal life. So if you're not kind to others now, well, this field of dreams can easily turn into a field of eternal nightmares. Ancient Egyptians' beliefs in hell predates Jewish, Christian, and Islamic visions. The concept of hell in ancient Egypt predates the concept of hell in more of these modern religions, which is kind of baffling. With the god Osiris believed to be the lord of said underworld, we have the coffin text and the Book of the Dead now to study up while we're still, you know, living like lousy mortals. Maybe the Egyptians were onto something here. Maybe the sky really is an iron container of water for the gods. Maybe we have to earn our spot in this cosmos. I don't know. One way or another, there's definitely more than one dimension. Either cats or Egyptian afterlives. We're gonna see one of the two. Kicking off the list at number 10. The UPSWEEP. Remember last July when the ocean was on fire in the Gulf of Mexico due to a gas leak and we all watched like, what's going on? What is this? Why is there a hole to hell? Just all of a sudden it appeared? Well, 5 hours later, the company resumed pumping gas again. So sometimes when the ocean screams at us, we have to listen. Even if we're not exactly sure what it is we're hearing. Sound travels much faster underwater than it does in air, more than 4 times as fast. You ever crack your knuckles underwater? Try it when you get a chance. It sounds like a war zone underneath there. See, because sound travels so quickly, it's hard to find out where the signals or events are happening in the deep sea. The UPSWEEP is an unidentified sound that was heard throughout the entire Pacific Ocean. Again, quite loud. When the Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory fired up its sound surveillance system back in 1991, these sounds were heard. This sound happens in real time as well. It's not sped up or altered in any way. These upsweeping sounds last a few seconds each ping. The source was roughly located around New Zealand and South America, and it peaks around autumn and spring. So whatever it is, well, it's probably hibernating.
This idea comes from a study that was conducted in 2015 at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, which sounds like a place that only the CIA or Autobots are allowed to go. Your brain's gotta be this big to get in. Anyway, this study suggested that life could have spread via panspermia, which is the hypothesis that life exists throughout the universe, distributed by space dust, meteoroids, asteroids, comets, that sort of thing. Moving star to star in clusters, scientists tested 2 possibilities for what might have brought life to Earth: asteroids and intelligent beings. These aren't the only 2 possibilities that exist, it's just the ones that they tested, but here's the thing. The researchers found that they were both possible. And to make matters worse, they would have followed the same pattern. Yeah, so good luck getting any concrete answers, you know what I mean? If correct, this study could mean that there is either life somewhere else in the galaxy or that some other higher beings or something like that does exist. In our number 8 spot today, we have how? Okay, so this is a point that some people explain may show us that there is some sort of higher power or being or dimension involved in getting us to where we are today. I'm not saying that this is concrete proof, I'm just here regurgitating other people's ideas and theories, and you can take them and do what you want with them, okay? This is a choose your own adventure zone, I'm not telling you how to think. Basically, this is the idea that was based on certain studies which suggest that the universe shouldn't have survived more than a second. As one example, the Big Bang apparently should have created equal parts of matter and antimatter, which would then cancel each other out, but as we're all standing here, literally made up of matter, we know that that's not the case. Instead, slightly more matter was produced, which then turned into the entire observable universe. We can't definitively explain why or how this happened, which of course is exactly why people have to come up with their own theories. At this point, I mean, there has to be a reason why, but your guess is as good or probably better than mine. In our number 7 spot today, we have hyperdimension. Okay, we're not even halfway through this list and we're diving into some string theory. Buckle up, everyone. I am certainly not an expert, so it's gonna be a bumpy ride. So in string theory, there's these little loops of vibrating stringiness. In the theory, these are what are called the fundamental objects of reality, and they manifest themselves as particles like electrons and neutrinos, or the force carriers of nature like photons and gravitons. They do this through their vibrations. So what we see is a little particle, and by see, I mean, we don't really see because it's so small, but what's even smaller is this vibrating stringiness that vibrates with different modes, similar to a guitar string kind of deal. So like how all strings tuned to A flat sound the same or play the same note, each vibration mode is thought to relate to a different particle. So all A flats are electrons and all E naturals are photons. Hopefully you get what I'm saying. So in string theory, particle collisions are these strings all merging together and then splitting apart. In this world, for the math to, well, math, there has to be more than 4 dimensions in our world. I'm sorry, I don't know enough about math to really fully explain this, but basically our space-time doesn't give the strings enough room or space or whatever you want to call it to do their little vibrating thing in all the ways needed for all the variety of particles in the world. Like, there's too many notes, if that makes sense. So basically this theory is suggesting that particles aren't just wiggling around, they're doing it hyperdimensionally. Right now, based on this theory, some suggest as many as 10 or 11 dimensions might be necessary. In our number 6 spot today, we have logic. Back in the 1940s, Kurt Gödel, who was a physicist, tried to prove the existence of God using math, and he based this on the argument by St. Anselm of Canterbury. I thought the whole religion thing was about having faith, but truth be told, if someone could prove to me that a higher power is real, I'd be fully willing to hear them out. The argument for the saint is as follows. There is a greater being called God, and nothing greater than God can be imagined. God exists as an idea in the mind. With all other things being equal, a being that exists in both the mind and reality is better than a being that only exists in the mind. Therefore, if God only exists in the mind, then it's possible that we can imagine a being more powerful than God. However, that contradicts argument 1 because nothing greater than God can be imagined. Therefore, God exists. I'm definitely not convinced yet, but basically where Kurt comes in is that in using this modal logic in parallel universes, he argued that if an all-powerful being exists in at least one parallel universe, that means they exist. As there are an infinite number of universes with an infinite number of possibilities, one universe has a being so powerful that it would be considered an omnipotent God. Therefore, God exists. In 2013, this idea was challenged by 2 mathematicians who processed the mathematical equation that goes along with this theory on a computer, and it was found to be correct. Here is the flaw though. This doesn't prove that a God exists, it just proves that some sort of all-powerful being could exist according to modal logic. In our number 5 spot today, we have the valley. This is another theory in reference to what we were previously talking about, how some argue that the universe basically just shouldn't exist, and that in some way could lead some people to argue that this means some other dimension or being is responsible for our world. This theory has the world placed in the Higgs field, which is what gives particles their mass. The theory suggests that basically there is a large energy field that is stopping our universe from just like falling into a valley or a deeper field in which the universe wouldn't be able to exist. Okay, that sounds kind of daunting, but also nice and cozy. But based on the standard model of physics, if correct, a rapid expansion of the universe right after the Big Bang probably should have already moved the universe into this valley or deep field, which again would have destroyed it less than a second after it was created. I'm not gonna lie, this is another one that doesn't have me fully convinced, but it is still interesting to say the least. I think I'm just still hung up on trying to figure out what would be around if the universe wasn't. What the heck is the valley? Where is this field? And how could the whole universe fall? I love and hate science so much, it's the most conflicting feeling. In our number 4 spot today, we have the cylinder condition. For this theory of other dimensions, let's take a trip back to 1919, shortly after Albert Einstein. Yeah, remember that guy? Remind me to thank him for literally melting my brain while trying to research for this video. After he published his theory of general relativity, there was a mathematician and physicist named Theodore Kaluza who decided to play around with the equations within the theory just for fun. I guess that's what smart people do for fun. I just play Overcooked or Mario Party with Taylor, but I guess to each their own. So while he's just doing his Sunday crossword puzzle, he found something interesting when he added a 5th dimension to the equation. Nothing happened. The equations within the theory of relativity don't care about the number of dimensions that exist. Then, just to do some equations on master mode, Theodore decided to spice up this 5th dimension he was adding. He made it one that wrapped around itself in in what was called a cylinder condition. This ended up creating a new thing that caught Theodore's attention. The equations were the usual equations of general relativity in the first 4 dimensions, but there was also a new equation that replicated the expressions of electromagnetism. This created a hypothesis that perhaps adding dimensions might, in the end, unify physics, which would kind of make sense of a few things that currently don't really. In our number 3 spot today, we have the glitch in the matrix. This is one of those ideas that makes you wonder if we are living in a simulation. Are there some other beings in a higher dimension that are playing around with us like Sims? Because if so, I got some beef with mine. According to theoretical physicist John D. Barrow, we can tell if the universe is a simulation by looking for mistakes or errors in it, and it's important to note that he also believes that even beings in these higher dimensions or an advanced civilization would not have a complete knowledge of our nature's laws. This would lead to mistakes or glitches in the matrix. The notable ones would be changes in physical constants, which are physical properties like the speed of light that are always the same everywhere throughout time. Or has it been? In 2001, there were researchers in Australia who claimed to have found evidence that the speed of light has been slowing down over the last billion years. This does contradict general relativity, and it's not something I'm ignoring, we're just talking about theories here. To further this example, astronomer John Webb discovered that light from a quasi-stellar radio source, or a quasar, which is a highly luminous object in the early universe thought to be powered by supermassive black holes, so he found that light from one had absorbed the wrong type of photons on its 12 billion year journey to Earth. The only way this could happen is if there was a change in the speed of light or in the charge of an electron, both of which are physical constants. There are people who disagree or don't see eye to eye with this theory that these things might just prove we're living in a simulation, but regardless of that, no one is exactly sure why physical constants stay constant, but we do know that they are imperative and critical for our existence, and really for the existence of the entire universe. Some would argue that they're so fixed and important that it just might be evidence of the universe being created specifically for life. In our number 2 spot today, we have cosmic rays. In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom suggested that the universe is actually just a computer simulation, which, yeah, clearly we've all heard that before, so what makes this one so special? Well, he put forward the idea that, obviously, if true, this would mean that some higher beings, or being, would have had to build this simulation, but that means that the universe would have to be finite because all computers have limits. This means that maybe the simulation is detectable only if we can find the limits of the universe. To test this idea, German researchers built universe simulators on a lattice in a quantum computer, which fully sounds like a made-up sentence of fake words. During this, they focused on cosmic rays, which are atom fragments that come from outside of our solar system. They chose these because they have a finite or limited and definable amount of power, which leads to them deteriorating over time. They found that all the cosmic rays, when they reached Earth, had a similar amount of energy, a maximum of 10 electron volts. This is curious because it suggests that all the cosmic rays had similar starting points, like perhaps not so different from the edge of a simulation lattice on a quantum computer. Do you see where I'm going with this? What if we're all just one big quantum computer? I guess that would finally explain the cloud. In our number 1 spot today, we have the landscape. Okay, we're almost done talking about string theory for the day. I know I'm gonna take a nap after finishing this one. My brain just needs some peace at this point because I don't even know it's real anymore. Maybe nothing, maybe so much that I don't even know 99% of it exists. Either way, there's a chance that these dimensions we don't see or don't realize are exceptionally small and that they wrap up on themselves. And it's thought that if this were true, that every time we moved ourselves around in our 4-dimensional space, we'd be moving around these extra dimensions billions and billions of times, and these dimensions are where the strings in string theory live. After more smart people did even more math, it was realized that these 6 extra spatial dimensions that we talked about before when we were discussing how the particles or the strings that make them up need more room to vibrate, and in order to do that, they need at least 6 extra dimensions. You know, I was doing a whole guitar thing. So those extra dimensions, they have to be wrapped up in a very specific way, which is known as the Calabi-Yau manifolds. I apologize if I said that wrong. These are named after 2 very prominent physicists, but here's where things get even more chaotic than before. There isn't just one manifold that could exist. There's like 10 to the power of 200,000. As Paul Sutter on Space.com put it so perfectly, quote, "It turns out that when you need 6 dimensions to curl up on themselves and give them almost any possible way to do it, it adds up. He also goes on to explain that, quote, each possible configuration will affect the ways the strings inside them vibrate. Since the ways that strings vibrate determine how they behave up here in the macroscopic world, each choice of manifold leads to a distinct universe with its own set of physics. So only one manifold can give rise to the world as we experience it. Unfortunately, we don't actually have an answer to that. But the good news is that string theory is always evolving. It isn't something that is finished. It's a theory. We have ways of hopefully trying to get close to the real thing, but we don't really know how right we are. Right now, the best response from string theorists is what is called the landscape. This is a multiverse of all of the possible universes as predicted by the manifolds. I feel like I'm in a really bad episode of Rick and Morty right now.